Hi. Hi. If you guys don't mind showing your face so we can build community and connect, unless there is some stuff going on. You don't want to show your face right now, but it's helpful for all of us to feel connected. And definitely a reminder to that this isn't so much a lecture, but more community building and sharing. And definitely feel free to ask questions. And Ashley's just doing a lot of multitasking. Yes, totally understand. So yeah, we are so excited to have everyone here. Today
it might be under the time.
So excited to have everyone here. Today is really just about this idea of managing your health and your sense of well-being in probably the most anxiety-inducing times that in recent memory. And I don't think we as human beings have been through anything like this in at least over a century. So I would like to introduce our panelists. We have with us Jennifer Fortune. And Jennifer is fantastic. Building off of a 10-plus year career meeting the health needs of families and communities of color within the nonprofit space, Jennifer Fortune, MPH, currently serves as the Chief of Strategy and Director of Project Management for All Aces, Inc., an applied learning social enterprise centered on advancing racial equity and building resilience in partnership with organizations of all sizes across the nation. As a public health wellness advocate and racial equity strategist grounded in spirit and joy, Jennifer leads from the foundation needed to walk with those willing and ready to reflect the consciousness required to transform our inner spaces, collective spaces, and thus the world. Currently, Jennifer delights in all things sisterhood, travel, and wine. Hey, Jennifer.
Hello. Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thanks for being here. And we also have Jennifer Sterling of the Body Full Healing Project. Jennifer is a registered dance movement psychotherapist and holistic nutritionist. She created the Body Full Healing Project to provide a safe space for open, honest conversations about mental health, help Black women to understand their emotions and feel them safely using body-based interventions like dance and movement, and offer resources to help mentally, and emotionally, so we can have a sense of what it feels like to be well. Jennifer. Hey. I felt that in my spirit, because what does it mean to be well right now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tough question.
Yeah, no, started you off with an easy one. How is everyone feeling? Do people feel well? What does wellness mean to you in the context of this time we're living in and in your day-to-day life? I can start us off. I do not feel well. I feel like productivity Instagram has been throwing up a lot of don't get in the quarantine 15. This is the perfect time. You have nothing but time to start a yoga practice or to work out or make those meals that you said that you would make if you had time. And I have not been prioritizing any of that. It feels like I have even less reason to do those things for myself. And I'm an anxious person in general, but it just feels like I'm really leaning into that because there's never been more of a reason to have than to be like, you know, we're living in a global pandemic. I don't feel like making myself a great meal, or I don't feel like working out. There's always an excuse or reason for why I'm not interacting with wellness the way that I know I'm trying to work on my language, so I don't want to say I should. Like, I get to do it, but I don't want to do it. So that's how I'm feeling. Anyone else wanna add how they're doing?
Hi, I'm Claire.
Hey, Claire.
Hello. Thank you for hosting this event. I am feeling well in the sense of feeling grateful. Just the ability to be with my kids. I truly like being in their presence. They get on my nerves. I tell them every day, but I really enjoy being in their presence. So without this, I really wish there wasn't a pandemic right outside my window, but this is such a beautiful opportunity to just bond as a family. So that has me feeling well in that sense. But then just the overwhelming fear. I mimic the same thing. Is your name Tommy? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Tommy.
Okay. Feeling that same kind of pressure, like, oh, I should probably do that workout that I said I would do, and then I just ate a bag of chips. Or just feeling that Instagram pressure, as you said, that I should be doing something more. And then I quickly snap out of it, like, no, I've been working for so long. I've been taking care of my kids. Like, I deserve to actually just be still and rest and enjoy them. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, sure.
Jennifer?
Hi,
Jennifer,
it's
how?
Bianca. Can you guys
Oh, hey,
hear me?
Bianca. Yes.
Hi. Okay, I'll be brief. Because
You don't have to
every
be.
day I kind of feel something. Okay. To be honest, like I'm grateful for I call it the break of life that we've been given in this moment. It was nice to get off the hamster wheel. But I do, going back to the gram, I do feel like there is this now, I don't know how to explain it, but we're getting a break from like extreme capitalism. Like all that has been shut down. But something has shifted where the new thing is watch a dance party, do a dance-a-thon, watch a free concert. Like, and I'm grateful for that stuff. I mean, I work in the arts. I'm an artist. I'm happy that people are giving of themselves in that way. But I feel like it's a new pressure to be like, to be productive or to spend your time wisely, quote unquote. And that today it hit me like that actually is starting to piss me off. And I feel like it's taken over for capitalism. Like, so we can't spend dollars, then the new currency is time. And I still feel like there's a judgment about how you're spending your time. And I'm still very grateful for the break, because it's just allowed me to slow down. But now I'm irritated because I feel this pressure of, if I don't spend my time in a particular way, then I didn't take advantage of the break from life. And I don't know how to balance that.
Oof, Bianca, that was a word. I felt all of that. You articulated something I didn't even know I needed to be articulated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of validity to what she's saying, and that it doesn't seem like we as a culture really know how to slow down. Those of us that are able to right now, are still being told, like still caught up in that sort of capitalist idea that we have to be productive and we need to be doing something with our time, and not necessarily doing what a lot of us are feeling like we need to do, which is rest, if we're capable of doing that right now. I am still working, so it doesn't feel like I have time. But definitely for me, I've noticed incorporate a lot more self-care into my routines, just because I'm a therapist, I'm working in a hospital. I need to be able, my self-care at this point also feels like a second job. So that at times feels like almost like an oxymoron, so to speak, but it's a lot to juggle.
So I'm feeling well. As I was sharing with Jennifer earlier, I, work from home, so there hasn't been much of a transition for me, which has been lovely. And really what's just been on the top of my mind and heart is how can I support my community who doesn't have the flexibility that I have. However, with that said, I did take a couple of days off this week and jump back into work today. And my initial reaction was just like, oh, wow. So you all decided to send me all these emails for me to come back to. You all literally have pressed pause while I've been gone for 3 solid days, waiting for me to pick up and jump in and do what I typically do, right? There wasn't much of oh, well, while Jennifer's gone, let me pick up this and let me pick up that. And that for me is concerning because, we do have other team members who are parents or caretakers. And, I've been mindful of doing my due diligence and helping out in that way. So as an organization, I'm thinking, at least in the workplace, I'm thinking like, because we have the privilege to be a company that, is in the digital world, how are we supporting one another internally during this? Because this is the typical emergency that really just uncovers what are the problems that already existed right before it came along. So like what is being revealed to us during this time that we should be addressing like starting now so that we're prepared down the road. So, I guess in summation, like, yes, I'm feeling well. However, at the same time, I'm also concerned about the trajectory of that based on my workspace and career, etc.
Does anyone else want to share how they're feeling? What about this topic called to them?
I'll chime in. This is Kristen, and it's my first time
Kristen.
coming.
Hi, Kristen.
Oh, hey, Kristen.
I appreciate this, Tommy. This is so cool. I have a wonderful husband who's finally decided that I should just avoid the bedtime routine and like give me some me time in the evenings. I relate to Jennifer because I'm still working full time at home, and my husband is working full time at home, and we have a 2-year-old. And also I'm 8 weeks pregnant. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm like thrilled about being pregnant. But I'm crumbling. I'm just not well. I'm not well. I resent my job because I'm trying to work it when I could be spending time with my son. Like it's a gift to have this time with him, and instead he's just on the couch watching Mickey Mouse. But I am grateful that I have a job and I can have an income, and they give us flexibility. They like work when you can, but in my first trimester, I'm so tired. I'm like, I can't like work after hours or before hours. And I just I struggle because we have no routine. We have no like structure. It's all just chaos. And I don't feel like I have the strength to even build that routine in the chaos. Cause I think the transition happens so quickly from like working at home to then the daycare closing that I had no chance to catch my breath. So I just like, I feel like I'm just crumbling. I'm just starting to tell people like, I'm just not okay. And then I feel shame because people like my coworkers are actually really great. They're like trying to help me by saying, okay, like take a break. We'll do this, we'll do that. And yet I feel like now I'm failing them and I'm not a team player and I'm kind of spiraling into all those self-criticisms. So the good news is like, I have a loving family and friends who remind me not to talk this way, but it's just so much. It just feel like I don't even have the strength to like overcome all those things, right? To start the self-care, to start the, finding a therapist, finding whatever. So, I mean, I'm just happy I'm here with you guys right now because this is already helpful.
Oh, good.
That's good. Thank you for sharing. Jennifer, do you have any immediate thoughts to share with Kristen? She touched on some things that I'm going to ask about later, but I want to address it now.
So the only thing that came to immediate thought for me is what Kristen already mentioned about her community, explicitly calling out for her in terms of her community and what Kristen has identified for herself in terms of the negative self-talk and the criticism and just the toxic downfall that we can end up going down when things like this happen, right? Particularly during state of emergencies, disasters, and moments of uncertainty. So I guess my only point is like the importance of having that community to remind you of that very thing, right? To remind you that, girl, what you're experiencing right now is not unnormal, right? Like it's part of our human experience here on Earth. And also as part of validating your experience, let me know how I can be of support to you moving forward,
Yeah. And Jennifer, do you have an offer?
Yeah, what I would suggest is to find little pockets of the day where you might feel like you're okay or you might feel like you're neutral, and just notice those moments. Because sometimes we can get so caught up in not being okay and what that feels like. And if you can identify one point during the day, maybe when you're playing with your son or you're just looking at your son, where you can let everything go, even for just a second, and focus and just have that as a memory of like, okay, everything is not terrible. There's a lot of things that feel really awful right now, but everything is not bad. So to kind of shift, if we can, away from that kind of black and white, which is easy to get caught up in when everything seems like it's falling apart. Is there one moment in the day that you can hold on to as a memory or a feeling that there was something good, or there was something neutral, or there was something okay?
Thank you. And Meg, yes, definitely understand having to make dinner, but it's being recorded, so it's going to be on the website and YouTube. So if you can't log back on later, you'll be able to see what happened. So have a good night. Ashley, I know you wanted to say something.
Sorry. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming in
Perfect.
clear.
I think for me, I've been thinking a lot, like during this time, about work. I feel like now that we're sort of adjusting as like an organization, I work at a nonprofit, and we're kind of settling into this idea of this new normal. I think it causes anxiety for me because we're thinking so fast and so ahead and everything's being, you know, transferred to doing everything virtually or digitally, I'm just worried about like burnout, and worried about like how much time I can actually take for myself. Like I feel like even these last couple of weeks, I'm always on my laptop, I'm always working, even though there's this like sense of consideration, I think, from the organization. I think, you know, we're trying to like always be like one step ahead, like putting out content, putting out, you know, relatable content in a timely manner. And it's like, whoa, this is really our new normal. And it's, I don't know, it's just causing this like dissonance. Like every time I'm working, I'm like, whoa, this is like really real. And, you know, it is really uncertain. And I think like for me, I'm feeling kind of like in a space of like shock, and transitioning from like not really accepting it to like almost like grappling with accepting it. So that's kind of how I feel, I think, now as far as like wellness. And I'm really proud of myself. Like I've been, since the last chat last week, and just in general trying to make those pockets of time of self-care, in spite of like all the emails that I'm getting and text messages and Zoom chats for work. Being able to plug in those moments. I've actually been like setting alarms and being like, this is when you will breathe deeply. Like, Ashley, breathe deeply at 3 p.m. Like, Ashley, do a sound bath at noon. Like, doesn't matter what you're doing, like, stop. And keeping myself accountable with that, and having family keep me accountable. Like, hey, did you meditate? Like, did you do that earlier? Or what's that looking like? So I'm really grateful for that. But I am still a little like, I think, uncomfortable with the idea of this like new normal and what that looks like for the new workspace. For me, like I enjoy going into work, I teach, I enjoy that. So it's different not being in front of kids and having to do everything online and formulate curriculum and do all of this stuff. It's a little uncomfortable, I think. I'm kind of over it.
That's real. Thanks so much for sharing, Ashley. Does anyone else want to share before we segue into our next phase of the conversation? Okay, so I know Jennifer is going to lead us in a grounding exercise. So feel free to take it away, Jennifer.
Yeah, so I'm hearing a little bit of everything. So what I'm going to offer is an orienting exercise that actually can help to bring the nervous system back into what is known as the window space, where you can experience stress but bounce back relatively quickly. It sounds like a lot of us are in a place that's more kind of like the emergency crisis space. And a little bit outside of that window where we can be really resilient and bounce back. So feel free to do as much of this or as little of this as feels comfortable. If it's not working for you, you're welcome to stop altogether. So it's really more of a focusing exercise, and just kind of noticing how you feel in your body. So we're just going to start by just noticing our breath. And you don't have to change anything, just notice what it feels like to be breathing in your body right now. And if there's a point, like it might be more comfortable for you to adjust your body or adjust your breath, you can absolutely do that. Whatever feels safest and best to you is the best thing to do right now. And from here, when you're ready, I want you to find one thing in your space that your eyes on, focus your attention on. And it can be anything that draws your attention, any object in your space. And when you find that object, to just notice what you notice. What colors do you see? Do you see any shapes or textures that catch your eye? And just allow yourself to focus on that object for the next 10 to 15 seconds or so. And when you're ready from here, we're just going to turn our head slightly in either direction. And I want you to find something else in your space that you can focus on for about 20 seconds. And the same thing here, noticing color, noticing texture, noticing shape, whatever catches your eye. And then just allowing yourself to focus on that object. And if you notice that you're having a lot of thoughts or there are other things distracting you, it's okay to acknowledge those things and then come right back to your point of focus. And we'll do this one more time. So turning your head just slightly in either direction and finding one more object to focus your attention on. And noticing what you notice. Good, and from here, bringing your focus back to the first object that you brought your attention to. And just noticing how it feels to be in your body. If there's anything different happening from when you initially were looking at this object. And when you're ready on your own time, you can start to widen your gaze. And if it feels good, maybe taking a look around your space. Eventually drawing your attention back into this virtual container that we have here. And if there's anything that to share, you're more than welcome to. You don't have to, but it is an option if you'd like.
For me, when I was looking around, gratefulness came to mind. And like a moment ago before the chat, I was super stressed about something that probably was minuscule in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I was just looking around and really grateful for these walls that surround above and next to me, and grateful for the open space that I have.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Ashley.
Thank you for leading us through that.
My pleasure.
Jennifer, I noticed my state of mind when you said bring your attention to something in the space the first time. And then by the time we came back full circle to that same phase, just being more relaxed in just that short amount of time.
Good. I'm glad that was your experience. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a good reminder that it doesn't, whenever I think about like grounding or doing something for myself to get myself out of these like spirals that I get into, it feels like it's such a huge effort to even begin to start to try to feel better. And it was a good reminder that just it's simple, it's a choice, and you're choosing to engage with something that makes you, that pulls you out of the spiral. So I appreciated that, and I appreciate just like, I didn't think gratitude until Ashley said it, but I am grateful for the space that I've cultivated in my home that feels so reflective of me and who I am, and just how silly I am, like the things that my eyes landed on, and it's like, oh yeah, that's so yeah, it was nice.
Good. And you could, I mean, it's a really good exercise I do with a lot of my clients and patients that have anxiety. And you don't have to even do 3 objects, but sometimes just bringing your focus and your attention to one thing helps to just slow things down. It creates an intentional pause. So you can modify it as you need to.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much for leading us through that.
You're welcome.
So something that one of the questions that I have in here is that, you know, a lot of what's causing anxiety around this time in our lives is just the uncertainty. How do you manage with the reality of uncertainty and create pockets of certainty in an uncertain word? I did not think I could say certain more times than I just did just now. Yeah, how do you create pockets of certainty when things feel so uncertain right
now? For me, it is having some sort of routine, right? And that routine doesn't have to be like at 8 o'clock I'm doing X, and then at 10 o'clock I'm doing this. It can be one part of my day that kind of stays the same. So I know this one thing is definitely happening at this time, or this is something that happens for me on a regular basis. So I know that this is happening. And there's all this stuff that's happening outside in the world that I'm not so sure about, but this one thing I know. And that is something that helps me personally. It's something I recommend to clients and patients, because we can't control everything. So it's also realizing what we have control of and what we don't have control of. And if we can create certainty within our realm of control, if that feels doable, then that can be helpful for some.
Yeah. Jennifer?
Yeah, so like Jennifer, rituals, routines are important to me as well. Not in the sense of time stamp, but more so, have I created I need for silence today, which is something I thrive off a loved one today, which is something I thrive off of. You know, have I moved my body today? Have I drunk water today? So, you know, those little things that go such a long way, but again, contribute to whether or not I am feeling well moment to moment.
Yeah. And how do you create a rubric for those kind of check-ins? Like for me, I don't realize, maybe because I don't I'm building a body awareness, but for me, I know like when I'm hot, I'm annoyed. So like, let me cool down. Like, what are some touch points that you can keep in mind to make sure that you have body literacy and are aware of like what's causing the feelings that you're feeling?
So for me personally, it's been a process of like going through inventory and really just figuring out what makes sense for me and my body. you know, this idea of silence and solitude being important to me, I did not notice that it was so important to me until I was in a moment where or a period of time where I was not getting enough of it. And so that to me was like, oh, duh, like you need some silence in your life right now. It's a bit too chaotic, right? This idea of drinking enough water, right? It's from literally dehydrating that these headaches, they're not working for me. You know, feeling sluggish throughout the day, it's not working for me. So really just a process of going through inventory. And I know it to an extent it can suck, right? Because you are literally you're trying things out and you're testing the waters, but what better way to get to know you and your body, you know?
Yeah, body awareness is tricky when it's not something that happens automatically, even though it should, I feel like. Or it's like one of those things that's kind of innate in us when we're younger and we kind of get away from, for various reasons, trauma and everything else. But I really liked, I think it might have been Ashley, maybe it was somebody else who said like setting an alarm, right? At this point, at this time of the day, I'm going to check in and see if I need something. Or I'm going to check in and see if there's something that I can do to really support my well-being. And it can be something small, like drinking a glass of water, or taking inventory even after you notice something, Tomi. So like, I'm getting really hot and I'm annoyed. What made me vulnerable to this feeling? What happened that brought me to this place, so that if it happens again, I know what's coming, right? So I know this event happened and then I got really hot. So the next time this happens to me, I can see what's coming, and then maybe I can also create or have some resources to coming back to whatever feels like normal or, you know, equilibrium for me.
I love that
I
you
like
said that of Jennifer, because it also makes me think of like, again, the value of community, right? And the folks who know you very well, right? It's during times of chaos, it's very easy for us to forget or lose sight of the very things that we've already experienced, or we at least have a window into. And so that's when community comes in and is able to say, well, I remember when, right? Or what about the last time when? Those helpful reminders from those who love us most are so valuable during these times.
I love that. And this is a personal question. It's so hard for me to ask for support in general, but now, especially when everyone else is so put upon, how do you cultivate that support that you need? And two-part, what are some alternative ways to get that support that aren't so tech heavy? Because I am kind of like screened out, with the exception right now. I love seeing all these boxes. Y'all are great. But like, it's like, oh, gotta do a FaceTime, gotta Zoom, gotta like, you know, text. It feels like a lot. And I need that connection. I need that community. I need that support. But it's also very easy for me to feel burnt out by the fact that the only way to receive it right now feels very tech reliant.
Yeah, I want to address the first thing that you mentioned about how receiving support. And when you feel like everybody else is tapped out, it can be, you know, it can look like asking someone, hey, do you have the capacity right now to help me with X, right? And they have the option then to say yes or no, as opposed to like calling somebody and saying, I really need help with this thing, and then they don't have the capacity to actually support you with that. So it's knowing who you're asking and knowing what their resources are if you have access to that information, but also just saying like, hey, I need 2 minutes. Do you have 2 minutes so I can vent about this thing? Or do you have, time and space for a quick conversation about this? And I think this time there's a lot of opportunities for creativity. I have some of my clients who are writing letters to other people rather than like email, just because they don't want to engage with tech. I have a couple neighbors actually who like daily, they're older, but they take turns coming to each other's window and just knocking on the window and saying, hey. So depending on where you live and what your community is, I think, we can get really creative about how we connect with each other. And it's not the same space with somebody, but to know that like, hey, this person's going to knock on my window at 10 a.m. or I get to see, or I'm going to get a letter in the mail. Those could also be really great things to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jennifer. That was beautiful. The only thing I would add that came to mind for me personally, the other night, I was lying down on my way to sleep, and I was just thinking like, wow, I would really love a hug. And I literally hugged myself in bed. And I think that's a good reminder of like, can be intentional about touching ourselves and providing that mode of connection that we may not have access to, particularly if you're living alone and don't have other people with you. And I don't live alone, but I still enjoyed touching myself at that moment. And yeah, it was really good.
Thanks. We have a question from Ashley. On the topic of community, how can we help our children to understand self-care boundaries, our own triggers, and how to give us time and space to work through those? That's a great question.
It is. What I do, and I think it takes a little bit of like conditioning, is I will literally say to my son, like, I know that you need this thing. I hear you. I see that you need it. In order to give you that thing, mommy needs 5 minutes. And he will literally time me. But like, okay, for 5 minutes, she's going to go do what she needs to do, and then she's going to come back. And when you do come back, it builds trust in the relationship, right? So you did the thing that you said you were going to do. You took a break and you came back. And now we're both getting our needs met because you were able to take that break. And the first few times, if it's not something that you're used to in your within your family dynamic, there will maybe some pushback if your kids are used to you always just being there, neglecting yourself. But with time and with the repetition, they'll start to understand, especially if you're able to leave and come back and do the thing that you said you were going to do.
Thank you so much for saying that. Do you think that is it important, do you think, like in those self-care moments to invite them to do that self-care moment with you? Like to sort of show them that like, this is what, I'm doing, and this is sort of what I'm seeking for or engaging in for this reason. And so during this time, I'm going to take this time away. For example, I'm thinking like just doing deep breathing, like I can already hear the questions that are like, hey, I need help with something. Oh my gosh, when are we going to eat? Oh my gosh, I need a snack. And it's like, wait, can you, I just need this one moment. And then I
want to do it with me, you can do it with me. how did that feel to do that? And if they, are feeling relaxed, or they're feeling, something similar, to mirror that back and say, oh, that's exactly why I do this, because I was feeling a little bit stressed and I needed to calm down a little bit. So, and then thank them for being with you and, helping you or doing the practice with you, and then do what you need to do for them. If you don't have the capacity to bring them in and you really need some time on your own, it's also okay to say, I'm going to go take some deep breaths and then I'll be right back. So gauging for yourself whether or not it would feel nourishing for you to invite them into what you're doing or not. Because sometimes we do also need to create some separation depending on what's happening for us.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I love that. I was trying to look up something a Mater Mia mom said about like this acronym that she tells her children, that she's told them for years and now they're adults, but it was HALT, and it's like, give me, like, no one talk to me as soon as I walk in because I'm hungry, I'm angry, I'm lonely or tired. And then give me that space to like address those things. And then afterwards, I'm happy. I can't remember ALT after she deals with hunger, anger, loneliness, or tiredness. But it was being intentional about creating a language that she could share with her family, so that they could like understand that she has needs too, and that mom's not a on-demand service provider for them. So, I always liked that. So there was a mention of digital burnout, whether it be like work-related, interpersonal. What are some suggestions you have for dealing with digital burnout so that it doesn't affect your wellness? Because so much of our lives are being lived online now. And it does, I don't know, I called it screen time madness. There was like a weekend where I was just like, no one talked to me. I've been looking at screens all week long. I could not look at another screen. So what's some advice around that?
Well, Tommy, I think you just said it, right? Like, explicitly calling it out for yourself, intentionally making that space for you to take that break, whatever that break is, if it's a full weekend, if it's an hour, if it's an evening, but creating that space for yourself, noting that you need the space, and then creating that space for yourself.
Yeah, and maybe even being intentional about the time that you spend in the digital space. So if you're noticing that like the first thing you do when you get up in the morning is check your Instagram or check your emails, to maybe create some space there. If you know you have to be on the computer all day or on Zoom all day for work, how can you shift things a little bit so that you're not on so much after that? Or are there pockets in the day where you don't need to be on the computer to complete the task that you want to complete? And giving yourself a little bit of permission to say like, okay, work's done at 5 o'clock. I'm going to close my computer if that's something that you're able to do. But I think it has to be intentional, because now, I mean, even before, everything seemed like it was on the computer. But more so now, when this is all of our social connections, to be really intentional about how we spend the time and how much time we spend in this space. It takes a lot of energy to be on screen and on camera.
Yeah. Are there any other strategies you guys can share about pulling yourself out of survival mode? I know that the grounding exercise we did was really helpful. Are there other strategies that people can call on?
Yeah, for me, as a dance movement psychotherapist, a lot of my suggestions are more body-based. So breathing kick up anxiety depending on how you're breathing. One of the recommendations I make for my clients is to, if you notice that your breath is sitting in your chest or you're breathing really shallow breaths in your chest, to see if you can draw into the belly and start to notice your belly expanding a little bit. That can be helpful. There's also a sound that I will use. It's the VU sound, which helps to stimulate the vagus nerve, which can also help to relax the nervous system. So if you take an inhale in, very similar to the Om in yoga, but the vibration actually helps to relax, to bring you into a parasympathetic nervous state, which helps to relax. So as you inhale in through your nose and exhale out through your mouth and make the sound VU, VU, until the end of that breath.
Just hearing that felt good. Got chills. I love that.
So those are a couple more like body-based things that I would recommend. And sometimes just like putting your feet on the floor and noticing your feet on the floor, right? Because we can get so like heady. What does it feel like to draw the energy down into the ground or draw the energy down into the earth, so that all of that kind of high vibrating anxiety has some grounding space? It has like a lightning rod to kind of push down into.
I love that. And Ashley agreed that the VU was definitely warm to the ear. Oh, that felt really good. What about you, Jennifer?
So for me, it's always leaning into what I consider my spiritual practices. Writing as a form of prayer, writing just to release the things that are in my mind in the moment, or the things that are kicking up whatever stagnant like emotions are in my body in the moment. Also leaning into creativity, whatever that looks like for you, whether that be art, all forms of art, or utilizing your hands in some way. And then for me, it is body movements like yoga and spending time in water.
Yeah, this time has made me realize that I don't really I've moved so far away from hobbies that are enjoyable. Like all the things that I used to enjoy as a kid are now tied to capitalism and a check. So I used to love reading and writing when I was a kid, and that is what I do for a living now. So the last time that I actually had a hobby that brought me joy was crocheting and cross-stitching as a kid in my extended day program. So I just found a Black-owned cross-stitch embroidery company to buy a kit from. We went to Michael's before all this happened and bought a bunch of yarn, and it feels good to step away from the hamster wheel of just always feeling like you need to be producing all the time. So I love that. Hey, Jalan. Are you muted or?
Hello.
Hey. How are you?
So this little one is the reason why I do what I never do.
Oh.
Please don't touch me. Please don't touch me. your patience.
Oh, Jalan.
Hi, guys.
Oh.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, Jalan.
You guys are about to end.
No, we're still going, and yeah, don't worry. Just
Okay, you guys.
I'm so glad you're here.
If you see if you see a little slippage, no one will be offended, right?
No, but I am recording, so okay. I hope you're okay with that.
It's fine. Everybody has seen this.
Okay. So this is Jalan Washington Burton, MD, MPH. She's a wife, mother, and pediatrician. She has over a decade of experience in keeping kids healthy, and she's the founder of Healthy Home Pediatrics, a house call and telemedicine-based pediatric practice serving the District of Columbia and surrounding Maryland and Virginia. She's a writer and blogger with Mothers in Medicine and on her practice's blog. In excellent patient care or doing medical consulting, you can find her spending time with her husband, a professor, their 2 young sons, their daughter now, and she enjoys urban gardening and cooking. Hey, Jalan.
Hi. This night, being the mom of 3 is completely different, and so part of the points I'm going to share tonight are just focusing on like your own wellness and being gentle with yourself. Is there anything else that folks like want to hear, or do you just want me to just go into my spiel, or like how have things
Lady, that sounds like exactly what everyone needs to hear right now. So go ahead.
Go for it. Okay, so number 1, being gentle with yourself. I am definitely one of those moms that likes to do everything and that likes to say yes for everything. One of those moms that likes to take on a lot. But I think as being a small business owner for the last 2 years, being a mom now of 3, things like you just have to go with the flow. There is this book by Adrienne Marie Brown called Emergent Strategies that my husband, who is a professor, actually introduced me to. It's a really good book, really small little book, little read. But she has worked in reproductive justice for a long time, and she talks about the ebb and flow of things. And she talks about how this ideal that everything is supposed to be go, 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 everything is supposed to be in this linear method. She's like, nothing in nature really works like that. Like we can force it, right? Like I can force my growth, or I can just go with the ebb and flow and let it be. So when I say being gentle with yourself, I think it's also being gentle in the way that things happen in starts and spurts in your life and in your profession, in your marriage, in your body, with your skin. And so when I mean be gentle with yourself, like just go with the flow sometimes. Hakuna Matata. We've been watching a lot of Disney Plus over here during social isolation. So being gentle is super important. So in those moments where you're like, I need to do this and I need to do that and I need to do this and I need to do that, sometimes the universe just wants you to focus on like 1 or 2 things, and the universe is going to find a way to get you to focus on those 1 or 2 things, and you just got to submit to that process. So the next thing
sounds like coronavirus,
right? And so my husband and I were talking about how this has really given us the ability to spend a lot of time as a family that like we wouldn't have otherwise had, because we're always on the go. Like I'm doing house calls. He's a professor. He's writing. The kids, you know, our oldest son is in school. The 2-year-old is in daycare, and then he's in some early intervention therapies. And so we've got things that are going. But literally COVID was like a stop. Right here, right now, everything gone. All the baby's therapies, like we just restarted a lot of the therapies this week. And as a mom of a child with special needs, that's very distressing. But again, I had to remind myself, we go with the ebb and the flow, right? My heat just came on. Can you guys still hear me okay? Can I get some thumbs ups?
Yeah.
If y'all can hear me. Okay. I see a whole bunch of thumbs up. Okay, wonderful. Our heat is pretty loud, and we usually have to put the closed captions on the TV when that happens. So the next thing I want to talk about when I talk about wellness and mommies and families is just time in nature. And I think COVID-19 has been a good stop, a good hard stop, telling us to go back to our roots, telling us to go back to nature. You don't have to spend $25 and go to, I don't know, Sky Zone, right? Like our son loves freaking Sky Zone. Like he always wants to go there. And I'm just like, they make me buy you a new pair of socks every time. You've got these socks. Where are these socks? And he's like, no, I need new ones. And I'm like, okay. But when we go on hikes, he ends up doing just as much, right? He's jumping off logs. He is making daggers. Like my husband and my son have been making daggers and spears, y'all. And the joy that they get from making these weapons. And I'm like, I'm not going to anybody's emergency room. Don't make me go. I'm not taking you. I will staple it, close myself. Y'all don't do it. Don't stab yourselves. Don't do it. But the joy that they're getting to that is just immense. So there are so many studies that show people who spend more time in nature are more healthy. Kids who spend more time in nature are more healthy, less obese, less likely to be eating unhealthy diets. So just every day, even if it's just going and standing outside of everything and literally just like closing your eyes, being that crazy person, you know, people are looking at you, whatever. I stand out in front of my house. I know the old people sometimes are like, what is she doing? But I literally just stand there. And I'll put my hands out, I'll put my hands up and just close my eyes for a minute. I'm gonna have a baby strapped to my back, a baby strapped to my chest. I might have my bathrobe on and I just stand, even if it's just for a few moments. So I hope folks have been using this time my husband says physical distancing, not necessarily social distancing, right? Because we can still be social, but we want to physically distance, but using that time to reconnect to the earth, reconnect to nature. Another thing, I think, for wellness, for families and for mamas. Yeah.
Can you answer this question quickly about going out to nature, or not quickly, but can you answer this question that Ashley has about how can we safely go out in nature during this time? I've been so nervous to go out with my little sister. She's 6. Like mask, what does that look like?
So thankfully we live near Fort DuPont Park, and not a lot of people in our neighborhood really use the hiking trails, and we've got pretty wide open streets. But what I do is, like, I'm pushing the stroller. So today I'll just explain what I do for social distancing, and all of this is based upon my reading of the World Health Organization guidelines. Unfortunately, the information that a lot of us have been getting, somebody's a little, the information that we've been getting from the CDC has been a little bit confusing, but, you know, given the current, I don't know, administration we have, it's just been difficult for us to get kind of guiding principles. But the main thing is that you want to be within a broomstick distance of people. That's kind of easy, like for you to remember, like take a broom, put your broom in your hand. That is how far you should be away from people. So my son, our 8-year-old, knows when we are walking, if he can see someone coming towards us, he says, Mom, it's time for us to get in the street. And I'm like, yep. Let's look both ways. It's time for us to get in the street. So we know that walking in the street next to the cars gives us enough distance, but we can still say hi to the people and be safe. I know the current recommendation is for people to wear cloth masks. I don't know about you guys. I feel very claustrophobic in them. But I am working on getting some cloth masks that like help our family feel less claustrophobic. The masks are to protect other people from your droplets. So think of the mask not necessarily like protecting you from them, but them from you. So a mask is like saying, I'm a good neighbor. Like, that's the way I think of it, and that's the way I've been explaining it to my patients and to my family. So the mask is me being a good neighbor. And me washing my hands and not touching my face is me protecting me from ingesting the virus, from getting the virus. So yes, it is safe for you to go outside. Yes, it is safe for you to be at the park, but not at a playground. So like, did you say she was 6 years old? So you don't want to take her to a playground, but you can definitely take her outside for walks. You can definitely take her out in nature. She can definitely hike. She can definitely do all those things. So that's what we do as a family. We take at least 2, if not 3 different times outside. Usually we do at least 1 big walk. My husband usually takes the boys on a hike, and I usually do some kind of gardening activity in the back. Okay. Let me see. There's more chats, questions, right? No?
Oh, no.
Okay. Anything else? Was that a good answer? I don't know whose question that was.
It was Ashley, and it was a great answer. She says, "Thank you so much for those tips."
All right, cool. I can make sure I'll give Tommy my.
Oh, Tommy. Wait. So sorry. Who was? I heard someone else speaking. Oh, hey, Bianca.
My only, I guess, question or pushback is in terms of that going outside. Wouldn't that also be in accordance to what? I mean, we go out in the front of our house and we have a backyard too. But if you're seen walking in the streets, you are subject to a fine. And all of our parks and beaches have been shut down. You cannot go into public space. So I guess my question or my pushback would be, I hear what you're saying, and we take walks around our neighborhood too, but I wouldn't dare leave my neighborhood.
I'm just telling you what I can currently do right now. And so that is what I can do in Washington, D.C. But I thank you so much for bringing that point up. As things develop, things are definitely worsening around the country. Here, I live in Ward 7 in Washington, D.C., which is one of the poorest and most underserved wards in Washington, D.C. And the numbers of deaths are going up. And I expect did I pronounce your name wrong?
Oh, it's Tommy.
Tommy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, it's true. I want to talk about nutrition with you and Jennifer. There is such a premium on food right now. I know that I will spare you the story because it's hella boring, but it took me a very, very, very long time to get groceries. And it's so hard to think about eating for nutrition versus eating for comfort when you're also dealing with like feelings of like, oh, I should be working out. I should be working on can you guys walk me through some strategies for eating for nourishment and comfort, and especially you, Jennifer, speaking to this kind of unhealthy way about thinking about food right now?
Yeah, so I think in this time and space that we're in, it is really important to acknowledge that we are going to eat for comfort, right? And naturally, our human nature, food is connected to emotions and social connection, and food is so much more than just fuel, although Instagram will tell you otherwise. Um, there are so many other things that we get from food and eating and the experience of eating beyond just nutrients. And so when you're feeling, especially when you're feeling the uncertainty and the anxiety, or you're feeling sometimes appetite changes with depression and appetite fluctuations can happen, to acknowledge that, yeah, I'm going to have this pizza or this cookie or this ice cream because it is for comfort. And if I want to make a different choice later, then I have that option, if that is an option for you. I am a health at every size practitioner, and so I don't do intentional weight loss. I follow very much an intuitive eating model. So I would say,
can you explain
also
what intuitive eating is?
Yeah, so intuitive eating is honoring the needs of the body and not putting any excessive force into the process of eating. So not restricting or not actively depriving yourself of food. Rather eating when you're hungry, noticing when you're full, understanding what satisfaction means for you when you're eating, understanding how it feels to be nourished for you. And that nourishment sometimes comes from food, whether it's emotional or physical, and that nourishment can sometimes come from other things. So honoring your emotions in the process, and also honoring your physical hunger and fullness and any other physical aspects of health that you are taking into consideration. So for me, it is very much, there may be comfort eating, but when you notice that you're eating for comfort a lot of the time, to maybe create some space between actually getting the comfort food and what's happening in your body, the need for comfort food, whether that's anxiety or something else that's coming up, to say, I really want this thing. And is there something else that I can do to decrease the intensity of what I'm feeling right now? So that you're honoring both things. You're not saying, I can't have this food, I shouldn't have this food is bad. I can have it if I want. And I'm also noticing that there might be something else that I need. And sometimes in that process of acknowledging the feelings and supporting those feelings, validating those feelings, you might come to a place where the food is less important. But you can have the food if you want the food. And that also changes the physiological response in your body, because anytime that we say we shouldn't have, we can't have, we crave the thing more, because your body takes that as deprivation and it triggers a famine response. So to say, I can have this if I want it, and I'm also going to address these other concerns. And just notice for yourself what happens when you honor both your body and your emotions.
I love that. Ashley asked, do you find that kids will eat to cope as well? I feel like my little sister is eating a bit more, snacking more, and I've wondered if it has to do with the fluctuation of everything going on right now.
For sure, kids have some of the same reactions that we have, especially if that is what is in their environment. So if they're noticing that we tend to eat for comfort, or we eat because we're bored, or we offer them food when they have nothing else to do, or they're angry, or they're tired, if food is something that they have come to know as a comfort, then they will definitely eat more or snack more. Sometimes for kids too, they'll eat when they're thirsty. So offering them something to drink too might actually be helpful. And not in a like, you can't have this food, have the water kind of way, but like, let's see if you might be a little bit thirsty right now. And then if you still want the food, we can come back to the food. But yeah, they may still have some of those same tendencies, but also for them, you can also point out or bring their body and their emotions into their own awareness. Say, what are you feeling right now? Or how does eating that make you feel? And see what comes up in the conversation if they're old enough to engage with you.
I would like to also add to that. What I find really, really helpful for a lot of families is just a schedule. So if kids were in school, they would have a very strict schedule with regards to when they eat their food and when they eat their snack. And we stick to that at home. And so, you know, first thing when we get up in the morning, brushing our teeth, getting ready, we have our breakfast. We're pretty boring. We eat oatmeal kind of every day. And then the kids know that the next thing that they get to have is a snack. And that's usually at 10:30, between 10:30 and 11 o'clock. For what I usually tell families is that a snack should really consist of, because most, say 99% of the families that I've worked with in the past who've had any like issues with like obesity or dental decay or anything like that just didn't know what a healthy snack consisted of. And so I usually say something fresh and something like crunchy. And so I usually say, especially if for kids who like get bored or don't want to eat fresh fruits or vegetables, like they've got to eat the fresh before they eat the crunchy. And so that could be a mandarin orange, that could be a pear, that could be an apple, that could be a banana. One of my son's favorite things is frozen fruit. And like you can just stock up on frozen fruit and he will literally eat like a bowl of frozen fruit. And then he can have a crunchy snack, which is usually for us pretzels or some kind of baked cracker or a granola bar. We really try to limit chips and things like that. And so I think especially during these times where kids are really craving schedules, having blocks, having specific times for breakfast, for snack, for lunch, for snack, for dinner. A lot of the crying, I've been getting texts about, oh my God, he's crying again. Well, did you write out his schedule for the day so he knew that like at 10:30 was snack time? No, I didn't try that. And then I'll check in the next week and mom is like, oh, everything's fine. Like he understands the schedule. We've got our little schedule up. He asked for a snack. I say, hey, it's not 10:30 yet. And he goes back and plays. So sometimes, like, again, when we're talking about like that psychological piece, sometimes it's just kids having that structure to work within.
And Claire says that she's done exactly that at her home and it has really worked well for them. It helps regulate their eating and saves us a few coins.
Yes.
LOL.
Yes.
Thank you guys for sharing that. It's the schedule, but I also have noticed these like extra eating moments, so I'm definitely gonna try that whole thirsty trick. I think, or like just that's a great way to sort of reshape the conversation. But yeah, even with the schedule, I just think she like sometimes just wants additional, and it's like, wait, no. And I'm like, normally if you were in school, or let's check the fridge says that you're gonna have snack in 20 minutes, and then so, but these are all super helpful. Thank you both so much.
Yeah. Stefa has a question. She wonders, what's a good way to reinforce the eating when hungry or during set times without being mean? Sometimes my 6-year-old just isn't with it and I don't want to withhold food. And I am going to step away while you guys answer that. I'm having some tech difficulties, but I'll be right back.
So you're saying like how to get your child to eat like during the time that you're setting for eating? Can you give like more? Can you give a little bit more? Because I'm a little confused. I don't know, Jennifer, do you understand completely? Or maybe like, can you give us your specific example and maybe we can just go from there?
Hi. So basically with food, like we've done like all the tricks, and sometimes it works, and there is the set schedule. We eat breakfast at this time, lunch is this time, and we have snack. We have morning and afternoon snack, but there's still times where it's like, well, I'm hungry or I'm still hungry. And I do to drink water and take a few minutes or wait 5 more minutes and see if you're hungry. And it's still like, there are times, it's not every day, but I always feel mean just ate. And she's an eater, so she loves, like, she'll be like, I had 2 hot dogs and this, and I'm like, girl, like we did the food, the fruit, the side, and you're still like, I'm just, and it can be like, okay, well, it's because my worry is that like she's not gonna know how to kind of like regulate being hungry, so I'm not gonna just feed you just because you say you're hungry. But I also don't want to feel, when I do that, sometimes she gets like really upset. And I don't like the feeling of like withholding food or having to have her have a negative kind of like emotion towards food, or feeling like she's eating too much, you know, just kind of like not being judgy about it. So I'm trying to figure out like when those times happen, what's the best thing when they're like, I'm still hungry, or I'm hungry, and you're like, no, you literally ate half the house. Like, how are you hungry?
But you're not alone. I just want to say that you are not alone. Like what you are saying, I have heard that story from so many parents. And my husband and I feel that way with our 8-year-old too. Sometimes we're just like, how can you eat so much, right? But like, they're always on the go. Like they're burning these calories. And to me, as long as like they're active and they're growing well, I'm like, I'm going to give you as much, like I let him eat as much fruit and as much veggies as he wants. I'm like, you want to eat so much? Okay, keep going. Okay, keep going. And my husband are like, is he going to explode? And he doesn't explode, and he's running around the house with more energy than us. So that, all I will say is you are not alone in that. And I'm going to defer to Jennifer as far as like not making folks feel bad about things. I tend to be like, you know, with my patients and with my own children, like when I say enough, like that's it. And yes, I always feel guilty. Like I'm one of those parents that like the parent guilt is always there. It's always palpable. And it's just a feeling that I've had to get used to. And so for you, you know, feeling like the mean mommy, like maybe part of it is that like that is what you have to do, or that is just the way that you're gonna feel. Because sometimes I always feel like the mean mommy, and I'm like, well, this is gonna keep this house afloat. Jennifer, anything about like making sure that we don't impart like negative ideals about food to kids? Because that's important. And I know that I think I often don't prioritize that enough.
Yeah, I think when it comes to food and eating and developing a healthy relationship with food, and a lot of my experiences in working with adolescents and women who have eating disorders. So as children, it is really important to have like understand what normal eating is. And normal eating is flexible, right? So even though they would typically have a schedule in school, they're not in school. And so our hunger varies based on what we're feeling, based on our activity levels, based on a number of different factors. And so there is some kind of give and take in the process of helping them to understand when they're hungry, when they're full. And sometimes when you're full, you're not necessarily satisfied. So it could be that kids are asking for more food because the thing that they ate wasn't necessarily what they wanted. It might have been what we gave them or what was available, but it wasn't necessarily satisfying. So there's still some hunger that they are feeling because they weren't satisfied. And if you think for yourself, if you really wanted a chocolate bar and you ate an apple, would you be satisfied, or would you still want the chocolate, right? So you give a Mandarin and they actually want something else to eat. They may 15 minutes later still be saying that they're hungry because they're not satisfied with what they had. So
that's literally what happens.
Understanding that piece of it, and also helping her to honor what it is that she's feeling. A lot of our food and eating information tells us to seek outside. Follow this diet plan, follow this meal plan, do this and you'll be healthy, as opposed to understand what's happening in your body. So maybe helping her, finding a way to support her in understanding hunger and satisfaction and fullness for herself, so that she can come to a place where she can regulate on her own without the external push so much.
I love that.
Yeah,
Thank
you. Put some examples of like, so a 6-year-old, like what would I say to that 6-year-old who like, or I have an 8-year-old, you know, who really, 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 really wanted that, let's say mango, right? And I can't get that mango right now, but I have an apple and I have a banana, and we're not going to the store because we did the store drop for the last 2 weeks. And he's like, I've had this apple, mommy, and I've eaten a banana, but I still like, I want that mango. Like, I am going to be hungry until I get it. Like, what words would you use to kind of validate to like them and like move on?
Yeah, in that situation, I would offer a choice. Like, we don't have a mango, but these are the two options that we have. Would one of these be more satisfying to you, or is there something else that you might want? Right. So then they're empowered to make a choice and decide which might be the best fit for them. And then if it comes back to, but I really want a mango, we don't have a mango right now. I hear you. I understand that that is what you're wanting and that's what you're needing right now. And maybe we'll have that later, but these are our options. Is there anything here that would make you feel close to the way that a mango would make you feel? And seeing if you can maybe explore a few options in the kitchen. But I find if you start with choice rather than saying this is what you're going to eat, you're better off than just saying, well, we don't have a mango, so just eat an apple, right? This is what we have. Usually at that age, they can handle 2 to 3 choices, which might satisfy that, urge for really sweet, juicy mango. Is it the apple, or is it the clementine, or is it the banana? And take it from there.
Does anyone have any questions that we haven't touched on about health and wellness that you want to ask right now when we have our amazing panelists with us? I know, Jennifer, when we were talking, what feels like forever ago about doing this, something that you said that really stuck out to me is how are we holding ourselves accountable to renewal, joy, and routine? And what are some ways to do that? Yeah.
So I think I was, if I'm remembering correctly, I think I was thinking about considerations we should be keeping in mind as it relates to what we can be doing for ourselves, how we can be supporting others, and also how we can create space for others to support us. And I got into a little rabbit hole about the importance of facilitating renewal for ourselves, and that really being hinged on joy and pleasure. And so things that like fall into that box or that category would be, ensuring that you're getting the rest that you need, ensuring that recreation is still part of your days, whatever that looks like, ensuring that you're getting time for sensuality and bliss, whatever things provide those type of feelings for yourself, or how you can be creating space for others to do that for you. And then thinking about routine, that being like prioritizing rituals. So what we talked about earlier in terms of, the ceremonies or the times where we allow for recognition and affirmation. So that may be your morning routine. That may be, the 5 minutes that Jennifer mentioned earlier, about where you let your child know that you're stepping away. That may be, the time that your husband provides for you to step away from the kids and join in community in something like this, right? That may be taking your shower in silence. And then, also remembering that emptying during this time is important. So releasing, and we talked about this in the very beginning of the conversation, like what does it look like to release ourselves from stagnant emotions? What does it look like to release ourselves from the anxiety that we may be feeling? What does it look like to release, feelings about having a bad day, or feelings about your stress being on high right now, or a number 10 right now? Like, what does it look like to release in a way where either you are emptying yourself out via connection with people, or you're emptying yourself out through discharge from your body, so like body movement, and really creating the space needed for you to come back to yourself, and imagine, right, and dream, because I think it's really important for us to note that when in times like this, when health needs are high, public health needs are high, emotions are high, chaos, fear, even grief is heightened, the implications of that is that we then lose out on the space needed for us to dream, the space needed for us to imagine, the space needed for us to be creative, the space needed for us to, laugh and really feel like ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. And then the last question that I have before I open it up to everyone for one last round. I thought this woman wrote it so succinctly, but her name is Monica Ladonna on Instagram, and she said, how can we design our lives for well-being, making the choice easier for ourselves and ultimately eliminating the element of choice altogether to create habits for our healthiest selves? So what does it look like to design a life that is focused on well-being?
So I can speak to that point. Part of the reason why, we spoke about why I opened up my own business, why I opened up my own practice, and it was specifically because I wanted to live the type of life that I was telling my patients to live, right? Like, I cannot tell my patients to be well. Like, there's a point in the Salt Eaters by Toni K. Bambara. I'm gonna drop some more if folks have not read that book. Extremely powerful book about wellness and Black women and just our brokenness. But there's a point in the book where one of the main characters asks a woman who is broken and bleeding, do you want to be well? Because there's a lot of weight in being well. And so I had to ask myself, when I'm telling other people, when I'm not telling other people, when I'm working with other people and I'm really advocating for them to live healthy lives and get enough sleep and eat well. And if I couldn't do that because of my own job, if I was going into a toxic work environment every single day, what was I doing with my life? And so starting my practice, my pediatric practice, was specifically about that. It was specifically about centering my wellness. And so every day of my life now, my work and my home are in alignment. I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in trying to be as harmonious as I can be in each space, in each activity, in each interaction. And so I understand that there's a lot of privilege in being able to do that, like as a physician, and I'm not going to diminish that. And I'm so thankful for that, that I was able to say, enough, I'm not working in this toxic work environment. And, I was able to work enough and save enough to be able to start a business on my own and not need a bank loan or anything like that, just to work it out, like side hustling, 2 side hustles, still to this day. But to anyone who can, or anyone who's thinking of it, if you can find a way to like just set yourself up and center your wellness in one small area. Some, folks got to do what they got to do. If you got to do your hourly work on the side, do it, but find a way where you can be the captain of making your wellness a priority. And then also hopefully being able to make money, being able to live a sustainable life. Like those things are possible. So for me, it was about getting out of toxic work environment and like doing the type of work that was authentic, and that was sustainable for me. So for me, that's what it was.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that word harmony, Jalan. When I think about harmony in terms of wellness, for me, it's that alignment, mind, body, and spirit. Me and my best friend last night, Claire, who's on this call,
Oh, yay!
we were just talking about this idea of like being out of alignment, and when things emotionally, right, are in chaos for you, the effects that we feel in our bodies, even without us realizing it, right? So those suppressed emotions, those neglected emotions, things of that sort. So yeah, being in alignment, mind, body, and spirit, for me is what harmony looks like. And in terms of general well-being, for me, at least right now, it's simply the acceptance that everything is the way it's supposed to be right now, or everything is the way it's meant to be, and I have everything I need for the moment.
I love that.
Yeah, I tend to take things in small steps. And so sometimes for me, it is kind of moment to moment, and sometimes it's day to day or week to week, depending on how much capacity I have. But asking myself what would feel really nourishing for me right now, or what would feel really nourishing for me to do today so that I can feel well, or have a sense of what well might feel like if I'm not necessarily feeling 100%. And then from there, what is the smallest doable step to making that happen, with an understanding that those little small steps accumulate eventually and become something. But because I live with depression, it is for me taking those small steps and weaving them together. So what is one thing I can do today so that I have a sense of what it feels like to be well? And that could be, okay, I'm gonna lay in bed and wiggle my fingers because that's the only movement that feels doable for me right now. And maybe there's another step to that after, but right now I'm gonna focus on this. And then as the day goes on, continuing to ask that question, what would feel really nourishing? What would help me to have a sense of being well right now? And maybe that's drinking a glass of water or taking a walk. What do I have the capacity for? And that's kind of how I root myself in the idea of wellness. And sometimes it's one small step, and sometimes it's an accumulation of steps.
I love that answer. And then there was a question that we missed earlier, but I think gets to the heart of things for many people. What if you struggle to give yourself permission to do all these things? What is a way to give yourself permission to do these things?
Follow up to that question, and why to give yourself permission? Is it a feeling like you can't, feeling like you're not worthy of? What is underneath that struggle? And also, what small thing might you be able to give yourself permission to do? It may not be, you know, taking a full day away from life or going on a vacation, but what small thing might feel good to start with from a space of permission. And that could be spending an extra 30 seconds in the shower before you get out and tackle motherhood again. Tiny thing, but starting from that place and developing a sense that you are worthy of doing the things that make you, might be a starting place for me.
Yeah, sometimes I just push myself and make myself go. I often find like having an accountability partner. I know it sounds cheesy, but in my mind it just works so well. So sometimes few really good girlfriends who are like my professional girlfriends, who are like, I've got one of my sorority sisters who like does not play any games, and if I tell her something, she's gonna remember when I told her, and she's gonna remember when to follow up with me. And so if I tell her that, like, it's gonna happen. And so sometimes I'll like let it slip to her. I'm like, girl, I don't want to tell you something, and she's like, what do you need me to do this time? And I'm like, no, don't make me do it. And she's like, Jalan, come on, we can do this. So my line sister is the best at that, and one of my prophytes are the best at that. And then also like my husband is the best at that. Like if he knows something is on my schedule, like he will get on me. I feel like he's a nag, but he literally will get on me and helps me backtrack. It sounds like I don't know if it would work for you, but like having somebody to do that. And I also heard if you don't have family members to do that, one of the ladies on one of my parenting listservs said you can pay somebody $5 to do things like that for you.
Like a virtual assistant?
No, there's a like, I need a task, I need a reminder. Like their only job is to remind you like about something. And for $5, they will remind you about that thing. Wow. So, sometimes you don't want your family and friends to know, like the thing that you have to do because you're embarrassed. So I'm just saying.
No, options. We got options. Something that my life coach says to me when I'm struggling to do something or procrastinating, or saying that like I'm choosing not to do something, is what do I get to be right about by not doing the thing that I want to do? So for example, my kitchen is like, I'm staring at it right now and I don't want to look at it anymore. My kitchen's a mess. And it's really hard for me to cook because it's a mess. And she asked me, what do I get to be right about by saying that, I can't possibly clean the kitchen right now, because it's always rooted in something bigger than what seems like a simple enough task. And for me, I get to be right about the fact that like, it doesn't even matter if I clean the kitchen because it's going to be dirty again. And it doesn't matter that like all these things that I'm trying to do to be a better person doesn't even matter, because I'll always be messy. You can't fix it. I can't. And instead of, once you figure out what you get to be right about, you get to realize that actually that isn't serving me anymore. I'm not bringing myself forward by listening to that negative self-talk that tells me that there's no point in cleaning my kitchen because it's part of this bigger, chaotic Muppet theory that I have going on about the way I move around the world. And how good do I get to feel by doing that thing that I, am avoiding? What does that feel like to do it? And holding on to, actually, I feel so much better when my kitchen is clean and I get to make this meal because I love cooking. I'm not allowing myself to have that joy because of this thing that I get to be right about. So instead of standing my ground, standing in my vision, what I want my life to look like, and making choices that allow me to be in that space instead of the space of chaos. And then also alerts on your phone can be helpful as well. Like, oh, I'm really bad at drinking water. And I have like 6 alerts on my phone that are like, drink water now, you beautiful dehydrated bitch. And so I'll like, yeah, you're right. I am dehydrated. I'm beautiful and I need to drink water because this alarm told me to. Like putting those kind of things in place that like force you out of your tendencies to like not do the thing that you want to do. As I'm not cured by any stretch of the imagination. I'm hearing myself say this and it's like, okay. There's some days I don't do it, but the days that I do it, it feels good. So yeah. Jennifer, what do you think?
So, earlier I talked about how one of my spiritual practices is writing. And for me, it like the power that change that happens when I write is that my writing is unfiltered. And so, I get to writing about the things that I'm imagining for myself that I wouldn't say out loud. And so, to Jennifer's point about is the idea that is the thing fueling you're not doing this thing rooted in fear or a lack of self-worthiness or things of that sort. I think when we get to writing or somehow releasing the things that our hearts actually desire, we have that to come back to. Like, it's documented, it's written, it's recorded, right? Like, unless you maybe I can erase it, like it's there, it's out in the open. And it ends up being like self-accountability for you, right? You literally have something to come back to and say like, wow, like I wrote that last week. It's here. There's no shying away from it. Or I wrote that 2 years ago. This is my motivation. There's no shying away from it, So a mixture of the accountability that Jalan talked about and utilizing written documentation that you just mentioned, Tony, I think is very valuable.
Yeah. Oh, you guys, this was so good. Thank you guys for being here. What we usually do at this point is go around and people can share a takeaway that they really enjoyed from the conversation and then also give an offer. So does anyone have a takeaway / offer they want to share right now? And if you can show your face, that would be great too, along with your voice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, leaving me out here. Okay. Oh yeah, thank you, Kristen, in San Francisco.
I don't know why that virtual background is on. I'm not good with Zoom. Anyway, there's a lot of takeaways. I don't know what you mean by offer, since it's my first time coming.
Oh yeah, sorry. I mean, what's something that you've learned here or separate in your day-to-day life that you want to share that could be helpful for the community in the room?
So I think a good takeaway for me has been to do the small things. So bite size. When I was in grad school, we used to say, how do you eat an elephant? One spoonful at a time. So that's a takeaway. An offer I have is that I heard the other day from a sermon I was listening to, and the woman said, can you make the promise to never say a negative thing about yourself again? And I've been really struggling with that. I do it to other people, but I don't do it for myself. So can I try to make that promise to myself and keep working on it?
Yeah. My therapist, one of my old therapists had me bring in a picture of me as a baby, like not actual like baby me, but like there's a picture that I think of as quintessential me. I'm in the second grade. I'm wearing like a huge Easter hoop skirt situation. And I have the biggest smile. Like I'm so happy. And she asked me to bring it in and told me to say the things that I usually say to myself to that picture of me as a child. And I couldn't do it. And she was just like, just think that you're talking to like baby you. Or also like you wouldn't talk to your best friend that way or any of your friends that way. So why do you get to talk to yourself that way? And it's when I'm being intentional, it's helpful. But yeah. For me, a takeaway was the grounding exercise. Just like a really helpful reminder that oh yeah, Liz said her therapist had her do the same thing and it works. But yeah, I usually get caught up in this feeling that I don't have any time to ground myself, to be intentional, to be mindful, and to breathe. And it doesn't take that much time at all. Like I felt so much calmer after that grounding exercise. The VU, I don't know, but it was great. So I can't wait to do that again. After you guys are in bed and at home, I can just be like, VU. I'm gonna work on it. It didn't feel as great as when you did it for me, Jennifer, but VU. Yeah. So yeah.
My really just sharing my gratitude and thankfulness for one, being invited here, but two, community with other Black women I love and die for, and I love particularly space. So to my fellow panelists, hand of applause to you both doing your thing. Keep it going in the midst of all of this. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Lovely. Anyone else want to share?
Hey y'all. And
Ashley.
That looks so crazy. So here's like a quick snippet.
Oh, you're gorgeous.
Like haven't showered yet. So I'm going to be just like reflecting. I'm so grateful for this first. And second, I'm going to be reflecting on like breathing, and something that Jennifer mentioned was like shallow breathing to like deeper belly breathing. That was something that stuck with me. I noticed I do a lot of shallow breathing as of late, and that's something that I want to work on. Just like deeply breathing, like actually is my goal.
That's great.
So I want to share too.
Do it, Jalan.
Okay, thank you guys. So when I got your message being like, are you here? Like, what's going on?
I was being very, very generous because you got a baby.
And you know how like So I'm going to tell y'all really how it went down, right? I am running around holding the baby like this. I'm like, oh my God, I missed this phone call. I don't know how I'm going to make it up to her. She's never going to work with me again. Like all these things, right? And then I get on this call and literally within 5 minutes, y'all have me so calm. Like I literally felt like I was going to cry because I don't like being late. I don't like messing things up. I don't like not having it together. Like the fact that I have on this muumuu right here and that I whipped off this hairstock right before I got on here, y'all, and I'm like, I don't have a lip on. I don't have an eye. I don't have anything to cover up this severe eczema outbreak that I'm having here. Like, it's giving me all the things, right? Like, I'm not happy. But, like, y'all, this makes me happy that in spite of, like, I don't have not a concealer on. I wanted to I had my Sephora purple pop that I was going to splash y'all with tonight.
Oh, man, Jalan.
But none of the things.
No, you just got to be you.
And like, oh, Mama gets to participate with this too. She's so happy. Right? So I just want to thank you guys. So like part of like me being gentle, right? Like with myself is that it's not always as perfect as it's going to be, right? And it's going to be what it's going to be. And then it can still be perfect because this is still magical. Like this feels magical. Like I don't even feel any of that initial stress of being late and everything. My husband just like stepped out of the house, like to go take the garbage out. Cause he was like, oh Lord, she worked herself into a frenzy. Can I help you with anything? And I'm like, he stepped out and he moved away and he's like, everything's fine, isn't it? And I was like, he's like, yeah. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
I'm gonna roll with the ebbs and the flows.
Yeah.
Little mama, her name is Omisa.
Omisa. Hey. Oh my God, my ovaries cannot.
Omisa May.
Oh my God, those cheeks.
Her name means it's a Yoruba name that means that the water spirits or the gods have encased me in extra defenses, and so she was born in her sac in her
wow.
in her home birth, which is extremely rare that she would be vaginal and born in that. But she was like, y'all got this coronavirus thing, I'm leaving this on. I'm not playing with y'all. This is her first Black Girl Magic conference call.
Oh man.
Excited. This is her sleep sack.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love it. Oh, Jalan, I'm going to have to talk to you off call because I'm doing articles about people choosing to have home births right now because of coronavirus. So would love to talk to you about that. She was already planned
before, but I have, oh my God, I've had like 4 phone calls with people since then.
Yeah.
Like friends just asking because they know this is my second home birth. So they're definitely asking. But I have, if anybody's in the DC area, my home birth midwife is the bomb.
Oh my gosh. Let me talk to her. I need another source.
Okay, we'll do it.
Yeah, so if, you know, I sorry, that just took me out. You guys, thank you so much for being here. This was amazing. Jennifer, thank you so much for your wisdom. Your insights, everything you guys shared was so helpful. Thank you all for being here. Claire, Ashley, Kristen, Bianca, me, Trinice, everyone who was here before. Really appreciate you. I would love to ask our panelists, how can people continue to follow you? Are there any projects that you're working on that you want to share?
I'll go on all the social media things at Bodyful Healing. And we had mentioned a little bit about movement earlier. So if anybody is looking for a movement resource, I have a moving meditation album that you can stream on Apple Music and Spotify and all those places. It's called Linger, Mindful Movement for Mental and Emotional Nourishment. So kind of a low cost resource that you can use now if it might be helpful.
That's awesome. Jalan?
I am currently on Facebook and Twitter. I really want to quit Facebook, y'all, and I think I'm going to. But I love me some Instagram. But I have taken a break from all things, and I just post on there professionally. But it's Peds Dr. J, PEDS DRJ. So Peds DRJ on Instagram and Twitter. And then my Facebook is Healthy Home Pediatrics. So my medical practice, my pediatrics with a S.com. I do house calls in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and I am currently accepting new patients to be enrolled as of June. So I have a robust and growing waiting list. So if you know anybody who needs a pediatrician, the waiting list was already popping before, but now with coronavirus, I am getting inquiries every day, and I'm actually getting some of the inquiries because it's a lot. It's a lot managing patient leads. So yeah, please reach out to me if folks have questions and things like that. I do not do telemedicine consults for folks that I don't know, just because it's I like to have that personal interaction. But if I don't know the answer, I definitely can find somebody who does.
Awesome. And Jennifer?
Well, this is going to be pretty quick because I'm not really on much. So I'm on Twitter at dfortune11, but it's not really exciting. I consume more than I put out on Twitter, but feel free to join me in stalking other people. I always love to be in community with folks.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your night. To my point earlier about being a little Zoom burnt out, I'm taking a break for next week, but the following week we'll be back. If you guys have any ideas about topics, just hit me up. I'm Tomi. I'm the founder of Matermea, Matermea, and it's a platform that celebrates, supports, and empowers Black moms. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Matermea. But thanks so much for being here. And you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.